إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله قال الله تعالى في القرآن المجيد بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم فأما من طغى وآثر الحياة الدنيا فإن الجحيم هي المأوى وأما من خاف مقام ربه ونهى النفس عن الهوى فإن الجنة هي المأوى. Dear brothers and sisters, we begin by praising Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We send peace and blessings upon Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, upon his companions, and upon all those who have treaded in their footsteps of righteousness and piety. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah make us from those who obey the complete teachings and instructions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that we become people who adopt the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and have love for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his companions. Ameen. In today's khutbah, I'd like to go over a very important concept in our deen. This is about having the right mindset, and along with that, having the right actions. Now, before we get into that in detail, I'd like to start off with an example, an analogy. And inshallah, keeping this in mind will allow us to understand and get a better idea of what we're going to explain. So the example I'd like to use is the example of salt. You know, salt. What we use when we're cooking, what we use to spice our food, to season our food, salt, right? It's something that is very cheap. We see it everywhere where we go. You go to any restaurant, you go to any house, a person has salt. And this is a powerful example. Why? Because salt is so prevalent, it's all over the place. When you see salt, inshallah, you can remember and recall this example, this analogy that we're going to share with everyone. Salt is made up of two components, sodium and chloride. Now what's interesting about salt is together sodium and chloride make salt. But if you had to take sodium by itself, or if you had to take chloride by itself, it can harm you to the extent where it can even kill you, right? If you take sodium by itself and if you take chloride by itself, it can harm you. But when you mix these two things together, it produces salt, right? And we obviously know the benefits of salt. In fact, years ago, centuries ago, back in history, people traveled across the world to find salt. Salt was a commodity. You know, what's interesting is the word salary comes from the word salt, because at one point in certain places, they would pay people using salt. That's how important salt is to our history as human beings, right? So salt is something powerful. The next time you see salt, you have to remember that these two components make up salt. And if you had to take each one separately, it can harm you, it can even kill you. Likewise, the khutbah that we're going to speak about today, what we're speaking about today is having the right mindset and having the right actions. If you take each one of these separately, it can harm you. It can destroy you. If you have the right mindset, but not the right actions, it can lead you completely astray. If you have the right actions, but the wrong mindset, again, that can destroy you. You have to have a combination, a mixture of both in order to be successful, in order to succeed and excel, right? So the next time you see salt, remember that in mind. A person has to have the right mindset and the right actions in order to be successful. Now, in our deen, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes that very clear in the Quran. The first example is, or the first ayah that we'd like to share is the ayah in Surah Al-Hajj, ayah number 15. In Surah Al-Hajj, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, من كان يظن أن لن ينصره الله في الدنيا والآخرة فليمدد بالسبب إلى السماء ثم يقطع فلينظر هل يذهبن كيده ما يغيظ. Now there's two tafsirs or two interpretations to this ayah. But for our purposes, inshallah, we'll just stick to the second tafsir of this ayah. In this ayah, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying is that مَنْ كَانَ يَظُنُّ أَنْ لَن يَنْصُرَهُ اللَّهُ فِي الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ, that the person who thinks that Allah will not assist him, or Allah will not provide for him, Allah will not help him. In the tafsir it mentions مَنْ يَئِسَ مِنْ أَن يَرْزُقَهُ اللَّهُ, that the person who has this belief or this mindset or this understanding that Allah is not here to help him, that he is all by himself or she is all by himself, that Allah has left them, that Allah is not worried about them, Allah is not taking care of them, or Allah is not looking after them. Right? You have people like that who they call themselves Muslims, they say they're Muslims, but their relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, their understanding, their perception of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is completely incorrect. When they fall into difficulty, they tell themselves that Allah is not here to help me. Allah is not here. Allah hates me. Allah has given me a miserable life. Everything is so difficult for me. Right? And sometimes when we fall into difficulty, we start thinking like that as well. That, my life has been very difficult all throughout. That I've never had any sort of happiness or joy. Right? You meet people like that. And sometimes we're even victims of that sort of incorrect mindset. That we completely give up on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this ayah is saying the person who thinks like that, the person who has that sort of mindset, that they believe, or their perception of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that Allah is not here to help them. Allah is not here to provide for them. Allah is not going to take care of them. You know what this ayah is saying to that person? فَلْيَمْدُدْ بِسَبَبٍ إِلَى السَّمَاءِ فَلْيَشْدُدْ حَبْلًا فِي سَقْفِ بَيْتِهِ, that they should hang a rope from their ceiling and they should hang themselves. Right? There's something very harsh. Right? It's not it's a very strong admonition that let them harm themselves, let them kill themselves. فَلْيَنْظُرْ هَلْ يُذْهِبَنَّ كَيْدُهُ مَا يَغِيدُ. Then after they've harmed themselves, after they've taken their life, see if anything changes. See if that's made a difference in that person's life. Right? What Allah is saying in this ayah, what's being said is Allah is here to help. Allah will help a person. Allah will provide for that person, regardless of what happens. A person may be going through some sort of difficulty at this time, but Allah is in control. Allah is fully aware of what is happening. And as long as a person continues to endure that difficulty, as long as a person continues to maintain their relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that assistance will come. And there's nothing a person can do to deter that help or that relationship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this ayah is a clear example of the importance of having the right perception of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of having the right mindset of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it goes back to saying that without the right mindset, without having the correct intentions, we all know the hadith, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالِ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, that actions are based on intentions. Intentions are part of having the right mindset. If your intentions are incorrect, if your intentions are for incorrect purposes, for wrong purposes, your actions will eventually be incorrect. But even more than that, one step beyond that, is not even having an intention. Right? If a person does not have the right mindset, there's nothing to push them to do anything. If they believe, if their understanding or their perception of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that, Allah is never going to help me, or, I'm useless, I'm worthless, nothing's going to happen, that person will wake up every single day feeding themselves that nonsense. That, my life is just useless. There's nothing in life. Nothing's going to happen. And every day their life will be miserable. Everything they do will be miserable. All they'll think about is, when can I go back to sleep, or when can I do something to take my mind off of all this, right? They'll never be motivated. There's nothing to push them to do anything meaningful, to do anything challenging with their lives, to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to be a good Muslim. That motivation won't be there. Why? Because the person is constantly telling themselves, Allah doesn't love me, I'm worthless, I'm useless. Anything I do, it never works out. I'm always in difficulty and pain. When a person thinks like that, when a person is constantly telling themselves stuff like that, what happens? They do nothing. And unfortunately, we meet people like that. There's people in our community like that. You speak to them, you meet them, they're always sad, they're always in misery. There's nothing is able to cheer them up. Why? It starts off with the mindset. But now, let's talk about a person who does have the right mindset. Let's talk about the person who believes in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who has the right perception of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They wake up every morning, they're happy, they're enthusiastic, they're full of energy. They tell themselves, Allah is always going to help me. No matter what I do, Allah will assist me. They have that strong connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They understand Allah is here to help them. They understand Allah is the most merciful, the most compassionate. That no matter what they do, no matter what they're trying to accomplish, they understand that if they work hard enough, then inshallah Allah will give it to them. They understand when they make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah will answer their prayers. Right? That's part of the right mindset. If the person has the wrong mindset, they'll never make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? Because Allah never answers my du'as. What's the point of making dua? A person has the right mindset, they'll make that dua. They'll try it hard. They'll have that motivation. But now, if they have the right mindset, but they're missing the actions, right? That can lead them astray. If a person has the right mindset that Allah will answer all my prayers, and all they do is make dua, but they never take action, that person will not move forward. If a person stays home all day and says, Allah will answer my prayers, I'm 100% sure of that, and they make dua every single day, oh Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, give me this, give me that, let me accomplish this, but they never take any action at all, do you think anything's going to happen to that person? He's not going to go anywhere. They're not going to accomplish anything. So with the right mindset, there needs to be correct actions. Now in the Quran, in Surah Al-Nazi'at, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about this as well. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَأَمَّا مَنْ طَغَى وَآثَرَ الْحَيَاةَ الدُّنْيَا. Now, what we're speaking about when we talk about correct actions is having that belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, having hope and trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, having iman in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that iman, that trust, that hope is now supposed to translate into the way we live our lives. It's supposed to translate in the way we act. Right? That iman has to now manifest through our actions. If a person claims to be a believer, if a person says, my iman is very, very strong, I believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I have complete hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but all their actions say otherwise, right? Their actions say otherwise, then there's something missing. So in Surah Al-Nazi'at, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes that very clear. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَأَمَّا مَنْ طَغَى وَآثَرَ الْحَيَاةَ الدُّنْيَا. For the person who طَغَى, they are constantly disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَآثَرَ الْحَيَاةَ الدُّنْيا. And although they believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they say they believe in Jannah, they say that they have full hope and trust in the words of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yet when it comes to their actions, it's not in line. It's not according to what they believe in. It's not according to what's in their heart. Rather, وَآثَرَ الْحَيَاةَ الدُّنْيَا. They prefer this world over the hereafter. They give preference to this world. Right? When it becomes a matter of choice between this world and the hereafter, they will always choose this world. Right? Although they say we believe in Jannah, we believe in the hereafter, we believe that if we do something incorrect, Allah will hold us accountable. Yet when the choice is given in front of them, they always pick that which is in disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? That is having the right mindset but the incorrect actions. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَأَمَّا مَنْ طَغَى وَآثَرَ الْحَيَاةَ الدُّنْيَا فَإِنَّ الْجَحِيمَ هِيَ الْمَأْوَى. For that person, right, we said you can have the right mindset, but if you have the wrong actions, then that will destroy a person, right? That will destroy a person. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَإِنَّ الْجَحِيمَ هِيَ الْمَأْوَى. For that person who has the wrong actions, they're always disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whenever they have a choice between good and bad, they always go with the bad, right? For that person, فَإِنَّ الْجَحِيمَ هِيَ الْمَأْوَى. Jahannam is their final destination. There's no escape from that. You know, in today's world, in today's society, it's very important to speak about the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? It's very important to speak about how much love, how much compassion, how much mercy Allah has for every single one of us. It's important to constantly remind ourselves that in the Quran Allah introduces Himself with Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, the most merciful, the most compassionate. It's very important to keep that in mind. And as we know the hadith of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he says that Al-Iman Bayn Al-Khawf Wal-Raja, that Iman is in between mercy and hope. And Imam Ghazali Rahmatullahi Alayhi, he says that a person should have more mercy, a person should have more trust in the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than in the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because it's the mercy that will push, the hope of having mercy is what will push a person. Because if a person has too much fear, then they'll tell themselves, I can't do anything, right? Whatever I do won't help me, right? But with that being said, we have to understand that there's a balance that needs to be achieved, right? We can't constantly just talk about the love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has for us. We also have to understand that if we disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what are the consequences, right? We can't always talk about if you try hard, you'll get what you want, right? We can't always remind people that, oh yeah, you just work hard, you'll get it. We have to sometimes remind people as well that if you don't do anything, you'll live a life of misery. We have to remind ourselves from time to time that if we don't obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there is punishment waiting for us. There are consequences and repercussions in life if we disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And again, it has to be a healthy balance. We can't always remind ourselves of the love of Allah, and we can't always just be reminding ourselves of the wrath and anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There has to be both. In Surah Al-Fatiha, when we recite Surah Al-Fatiha, there's a balance of both. Allah reminds us of His mercy, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. But right after that, Allah reminds us of His power. Maliki Yawmiddin, the owner, the king of the hereafter, of the day of judgment. Right? So we have to have a healthy balance of both. We can't just be reminding ourselves of how much love and mercy Allah has for us. We also have to remind ourselves that, when we feel like doing something incorrect, when we feel like disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's repercussions, there's consequences that we have to face, right? Because both will push us. Having trust in the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will push us to always try harder. And having fear of the wrath and anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is what will hold us back from disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? If a person just has too much hope, they'll disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and say, Allah will forgive me, right? And if a person has too much fear, then a person won't want to do anything, because they'll say, no matter what I do, Allah will always be angry at me. There has to be a balance of both. Now going back to the ayah, now Allah speaks about وَأَمَّا مَنْ خَافَ مَقَامَ رَبِّهِ وَنَهَى النَّفْسَ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ. Now the person with the right actions, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and the person who fears Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, مَقَامَ رَبِّهِ, a person who constantly reminds themselves that one day they will stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, مَقَامَ رَبِّهِ, that one day they will be standing before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they will be questioned by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَنَهَى النَّفْسَ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ. And out of that fear, having that fear that one day they will be asked, they will be questioned, وَنَهَى النَّفْسَ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ, they hold themselves back. Even though something may be very tempting, something looks very attractive, they want to do something, but deep down they know that it's disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They know it's a clear command from Allah not to do it. وَنَهَى النَّفْسَ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ, they hold themselves back. Why? Only because of the fear they have that on the day of judgment Allah will ask them, why did you do this? And what answer will that person give? What answer will we give when Allah asks us, why did we disobey Him intentionally, despite Allah giving us so many blessings, despite having so many great things in our lives? What made us completely ignore all that and disrespect Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, completely push aside the blessings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has favored and given us? Allah will ask us this. So when a person, and what Allah is saying here is, when the person thinks of that, and because of that, a person holds himself back, restricts himself, or withholds themselves from disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, فَإِنَّ الْجَنَّةَ هِيَ الْمَأْوَى. For that person, the only reward is Jannah. For that person, their ultimate reward in the hereafter is the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and an eternal life of peace, happiness and bliss. Right? So you have to understand that when there's incorrect actions, when we do incorrect actions, when we disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there are consequences, there are repercussions. There are things that will happen in this world and in the hereafter. That's our fundamental belief as Muslims. But at the same time, if we make those sacrifices, if we obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if we do what we need to, then there is great reward for us in this world and in the hereafter. So the point is that a person has to have the right mindset and the correct actions, right? Without, if either one is missing, if the person does not have the right actions but the correct mindset, they're going to face a barrier. If the person has the right actions but the wrong mindset, again, they're going to face a barrier. Because you see a lot of people doing things that, you see a lot of people doing things but with the wrong intention, right? They think they have the right, they think they're doing the right thing, but their intentions are all incorrect, right? Or they'll be doing the wrong things and they'll have the right intentions, right? They may want to help someone out, right? So I'll give you an easy example. You want to give someone a gift, right? But you give them a gift that you like, but that person doesn't like it, right? And you give them that gift and you're thinking this person's going to be so happy when he sees my gift. Let's say you give them flowers and they're allergic to flowers, right? The person will be happy, they'll appreciate it, but they can't do anything with it. They can't smell the flowers. They can't keep it in their house. They're allergic to it, right? So oftentimes we do things with the right intention but the wrong actions. So there has to be a balance of both. Both have to be present in our lives in order to be, number one, successful and then excel. We have to have the right mindset and we have to have the right actions. So what exactly are the right mindsets and the right actions? Right mindset is having full trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Having that correct relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Having the right perception of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That Allah is most merciful. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most compassionate. And Allah is all powerful. That Allah is the owner of our lives. And that we are the servants, the slaves of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that we live our lives only for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is the right mindset. Now that right mindset has to translate into our actions. What are our actions? That we have to live our life according to the teachings of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to be worshipped, that's how we worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? You see all these other people, they're worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's their intention. That we're worshipping God. We want to make God happy. But the only way you can worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the way Allah wants to be worshipped. Right? You see many people, even Muslims, they do incorrect things, right? They want to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so they make up some new type of ibadah. But that's incorrect. That's not how Allah wants to be worshipped. So the right actions are in line with what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has taught us. The right actions are the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to worship Him. The way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to please Him. The way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to obey Him, right? So we have to have the right intentions, we have to have the right actions, and most importantly, we have to have the right mindset. And it has to be a combination of everything. Because going back to that example of salt, right, we started off with, that salt is made out of chloride and sodium. If you take chloride by itself, it'll kill you. If you take sodium by itself, it'll kill you. But you mix it together, you get salt. And that's something which spices up your life. It gives seasoning to your food. It's something of value. So when you have the right mindset, the correct intentions, and the right actions, that's when you'll see results. That's when it will make a difference in your life. Missing either one of these will actually destroy a person's life. Will actually hold back a person from success. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to understand, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to have everything we just spoke about, have the right mindset, the correct intentions, and have the right actions. Ameen. Barakallahu lana wa lakum fil Qur'an al-Majid wa nafa'ana wa iyyakum bil ayati wa dhikri al-hakim. Astaghfirullah li wa lakum wa li sa'iril muslimin fastaghfiru innahu huwal ghafurur rahim. الحمد لله الذي أرسل رسوله بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله وكفى بالله شهيدا ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله قال الله تعالى في القرآن المجيد بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد عبدك ورسولك وصل على المؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات وبارك على محمد وأزواجه وذريته اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. Dear brothers and sisters, we spoke about having the right ingredients in order to be successful and excel in our lives. That we have to have the right mindset, we have to have the right intentions, and most importantly, we have to have the correct actions. And this is not just related to our deen. This also applies to our life, our careers, our professions, right? And that's a complete different topic. We don't really have time to get into that. But in order to be successful as a Muslim, in order to attain the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the happiness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we need all these components in our lives. We have to have the right relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have to have the correct intentions, and we have to have the correct actions. Now there's one final ingredient or one final component that is just as important as everything we just spoke about. It's having or taking ownership and having responsibility and holding ourselves accountable. Right? On the Day of Judgment is when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take every one of us, hold each and every single one of us accountable. On the Day of Judgment, we're standing before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah will hold us responsible for everything we've done. But before we get there, it's important, it's crucial, imperative that we hold ourselves accountable. That we check ourselves, that we take ownership of our actions, right? The only time a person can change their life is when they take ownership of their life. When they can take full ownership and responsibility of their life. If we're constantly blaming everything around us, my life is horrible because of this, my life is terrible because of that, then you're always going to be blaming something else. As soon as a person can decide that my life is in my hands, as soon as a person can decide that my future is in my hands, that's when a change will take place, right? Yes, as Muslims we believe Allah is in full control. But at the same time, we don't know what our future is. And at the same time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded us that we do what we need to do, right? Just because everything's written, just because everything's predestined, right? Just because we believe in fate, doesn't mean we take no action. We have to take action. We have to, right? And that's something we leave in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah knows best how that works, right? But as Muslims, we need to hold ourselves accountable. We need to take ownership of our lives. We need to tell ourselves every single day that we are in full control of our lives. That it's not because of my parents or because of this or because of that. We have full ownership of our lives. And with that comes accountability. That what am I doing to change my life? What am I doing to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? What am I doing to become a better Muslim? Because if we're not asking ourselves these questions daily, if we're not holding ourselves accountable, if we're not taking ownership of our life, if we keep on telling ourselves that, oh, I don't know anything about my deen, why? Because my parents never taught it to me. Then that person will continuously saying that to themselves. That person will constantly blame their parents. They'll never excel. As soon as a person says, okay, whatever has happened, happened. But now I can take responsibility, I can take ownership to learn about my deen. That person will change. So we have to take this very seriously. And in this ayah that we just read in Surah Al-Nazi'at, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about the person who disobeys Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the person who obeys Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what their reward is and how their actions are. In this, the scholars, they mention that this ayah is a balance for us. It's a scale for us, right? That this is a very, very delicate scale. In other words, that we have to look into our lives and we have to ask ourselves that where do we fit in these two categories. You can't be in the middle. You have to be either on one side or the other side. You have to fit into either of the category. Are you the person who constantly disobeys Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or are you the person who's trying their best to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Understand the difference, right? You're trying your best to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then there's the other person who just doesn't even care. You fall into either or, right? It's not at any given moment you fall into either or. It can be I try, I don't try, I care, I don't care. Either you care or you don't, right? So this is a very fine scale to measure ourselves. Where do we fall into this category? Do we fall into the category of the people that really don't care? Or do we fall into the category of, yes, we care and we try our best, but we make mistakes, right? And this is what we need to ask ourselves and hold ourselves accountable every single day, right? Every single day we need to ask ourselves, are we really getting what we need to be getting done? You know, if you're a business owner, if you're self-employed and you just sit at home all day and you tell everyone, I own a business, you're not going to make any money because you're not doing anything. You're not holding yourself accountable, right? Likewise, if you're, as Muslims, we need to hold ourselves accountable. We need to ask ourselves, are we doing what we need to do? Because there's no one else that's going to keep us in check, right? And the hadith of, not a hadith, but a saying of Umar radiallahu anhu, he says, حَاسِبُوا قَبْلَ أَن تُحَاسَبُوا. That hold yourselves accountable. Check yourselves before Allah holds you accountable. Check yourselves now. Face reality now. Take ownership of our lives now. Because if you don't, then on the Day of Judgment, when Allah is asking us, it's going to be a very, very rude awakening, right? That what did we do with our entire lives, right? So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to understand. And you know, stuff like this is not, people don't like to hear about it. No one likes to say, we have responsibilities. We all like to live responsibility-free lives, carefree lives where we can just sit back and relax all day, right? But the reality of the world is that if we want anything, if we want the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if we want to be successful in this world and the hereafter, we have to take responsibility. We have to ask ourselves, we have to push ourselves every single day that am I doing what I need to do? So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to understand this and accept this and take this with love and understanding. Because you know, when we mention all this, this is with love and understanding. This is from the Quran, right? I don't hold anyone accountable. Everyone is responsible for themselves. These are just reminders from the Quran. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to accept these as reminders. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to accept the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with open arms. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to practice on all this. Ameen. Inna Allah ya'muru bil adli wal ihsan wa ita'i dhil qurba wa yanha 'anil fahsha'i wal munkari wal baghi ya'idukum la'allakum tadhakkarun fadhkurullaha yadhkurukum washkuruhu wa la takfurun. Before we begin the salah, just one very important announcement. Salah times will be changing. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.